Assalamualaikum and good morning to Dr. Shamharir and fellow classmates. We are from Group 5. Today are going to present the Eversendai Corporation Berhad Assessment Rates Report. But before that, let me introduce you to our group member. First member is me, NURUL BINTI, matric number 264300. Second member is NABILAH binti SAIPUL BAHARUDIN, matric number 264359. Third member is ATIQAH binti ISMAIL, matric number 264378. Fourth member is NAJWA NABILAH binti Muhammad NOOR, matric number 264735. And the last member is NABILAH binti RIZAL, matric number 265420. So let's get started. Eversendai Corporation Berhad is a construction company that specializes in power plant and structural steel turnkey contracting. ECB was established in 1984 and was recognized as a worldwide leader in turnkey contracting, executing projects in Asia and Middle East for the high-rise buildings, power plants, oil and gas upstream and downstream. Eversendai Corporation Berhad vision is to be a global leader by innovating, excelling and sustaining with their core values in new frontiers. As for their mission, they aim to deliver sustainable value to their stakeholders by fulfilling their commitment to their client while strengthening the forging new ties. Second, they endeavor to maintain and enhance consistent performance, work culture and standards. And lastly, strongly believe in maximizing the value of human capital and aligning it with company initiative as a fundamental element of our business objective. While for the core values of Eversendai is compliance to safety, conformance to quality, adherence to schedule and consistent client satisfaction. Next, I will pass to the next presenter.
Hi, my name is NABILA binti RIZAL and my matric number is 265420. So without wasting time, I will continue presenting about the top 10 significant risks that we found in Eversendai annual report. So the first 5 risks will be presented by me and another 5 risks will be presented by the next presenter, NURUL ATIQAH. The first risk that we identify is COVID-19 restriction. To break the COVID-19 change, the government had decided to implement movement control order. Due to this circumstance, Eversendai revenue dropped 28.8% from 1.56 billion ringgit Malaysia. This has resulted in personnel and manpower mobility difficulty, supply chain disruption, project stoppage and complaints. Therefore, this type of risk was classified as systematic risk, since Eversendai cannot control this type of risk because this type of risk is completely difficult to control. The second risk that we identify is regarding political, regulatory and economic factor. Mega project amount 56 billion ringgit Malaysia that have been announced in budget 2021 expected to help Eversendai construction sector. Those mega project include Pemborneo Highway, Bandar Malaysia and rapid transit system from Johor Bahru to Singapore. However, due to the changes in Malaysia political leadership, the mega project have been delayed. This type of risk can be grouped as a systematic risk, since this type of risk cannot be diversifiable in nature. The third risk is have triggered a concurrent supply and demand shock. Due to a pandemic and restriction imposed by the government, Eversendai have triggered a concurrent supply and demand shock. This can be supported by a data that we obtained from previous finding were record 39% of supply chain were disrupted due to COVID-19 pandemic. This type of risk can be grouped as a systematic risk, since it is difficult for Eversendai to avoid this risk. The next risk is liquidity risk. Liquidity risk will measure the financial health of Eversendai so that Eversendai raise its committed money from financial institution and balance its portfolio with some short-term funding in order to keep sufficient cash or cash convertible investment to cover its working capital requirements. This type of risk can be classified as unsystematic risk, since Eversendai can control this risk in order to minimize it. The fifth risk is regarding high outstanding order books. Eversendai has recorded the highest outstanding order books amount 2.8 billion ringgit Malaysia during 2020. This occurred because Eversendai is unable to execute and deliver those projects in a usual way due to lockdown. This risk can be classified as a systematic risk, whereas Eversendai cannot control this risk from occurs.
My name is NURUL ATIQAH binti ISMAIL and membership number 264378. Now, I will continue presenting on the operational risk. So, the risk that have been faced by Eversendai corporations during the 14 November 2014, the liaison engineering senior Berhad was as a plaintiff has claimed and alleged of 8.2 million for the Mahjong 4 power plant project plus the interest. So, liaison engineering senior Berhad was the supplier for the project. So, the case will be bring forward on the 3 and 4 September of 2020, 22 and 23 October 2020, 9 and 11 November 2020, 17 and 19 November 2020, and 21 and 23 December on the 2020. So this risk has been classified as the unsystematic risk. Next, the financial risk. During 2020, the overall group probability level has been error record amounted RM 1.11 billion due to the fabrication business focus more on the energy segments that has generated poor results. So this is because the low utilizations of the fabrication yard in Ras Al Khaimah and UAI. So with the one-off impairment loss of on the trade receivable and fixed costs, such as the depreciations despite lower activity levels of the costs caused by the global lockdown measure. So this cost has been classified as the unsystematic. The eighth risk is competitive market environment. So the Eversendai Corporation Berhad has created Liquid Vision 2035 program that includes various mega projects, building of the multi-purpose industry city to the tune of $6.6 billion. So the contractions of the market is highly competitive with a significant international firm present, and this give Eversendai the expansions potential. So this risk was classified as the systematic risk. The business and project risk. Since the Eversendai Corporation Berhad was in the construction industry, so the structural steel engineering industry is extremely reliant on the economies of the country in which is work, as well the industry clinical nature. So the group net earning and reputation could be harmed if the contract work is delayed and not completed. So the Eversendai has proven track record of the effectively managing project risk in the past. So this case was being classified as the unsystematic risk. So the last risk is the exposed to liabilities for contract claims. So the Eversendai has not been affected by any obligations deriving from its exposed. It is to the contract performed in the past, and it will not have any major influence on its financial situation, business, or the operation in the future. So this risk was being classified as the unsystematic risk. Based on our finding, we can make assumptions regarding the risk matrix. So the risk for the number 8, 9 and 10 has the medium impact and high likelihood. Meanwhile, for the risk number 1, 3 and 6 has the high impact and high likelihood. So for the risk number 7 has the low impact and medium likelihood. And for the risk number 4 has the medium impact and also have the medium likelihood. So the last one for the risk number 2 and 5 has the high impact and medium likelihood. So that's all from me.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. I'm 26439 NURUL NABILAH binti SAIPUL BAHARUDIN. Now, I will continue the presentations with the action taken towards the identified risk. Firstly, regarding COVID-19 restrictions. So, Eversendai Corporation Berhad need to show the strong management by constantly identifying, prioritize, managing and responding to the multiple risk company to ensure the future developments. Therefore, a solid risk management approach able to help Eversendai safeguard the well-being of the stakeholders and also mitigating risk regarding the COVID-19 restrictions. It was a key to have a proper procedure, to ensure the restriction environment will be less burdens to the organization in accepting this risk. So, but the company needs to accept the risk by obeying a standard and regulation made by the authorities and continuous monitor the development of this pandemic. Okay, next, political, regulatory and economic factors. So, in order to enhance political and regulatory stability by enacting and enforcing appropriate law and regulations, the specific regulation of each infrastructure sector should be reduced. So, with the changes to sector rules, that are predictable as possible. So, to mitigate the risk of unexpected and advised administration decisions, Eversendai Corporation Berhad needs to ensure a reliability agency set up with the efficient procurements and permit process that's never compromise on the integrity as well as strong anti-corruption measurements. So this framework enable policymakers and Eversendai to take a holistic view of the potential levers and hence to undertake the comprehensive efforts to mitigate political and regulatory risks. Okay, next, liquidity risk. To mitigate the liquidity risk, Eversendai Corporation Berhad should not only prepare liquidity buffer as a counterbalance to the risk, but they also need to carry out the fundamental review of the risk factor to alignments with the risk policy of the organizations. Therefore, every organization needs to tailor its own counterbalance frameworks in the context of its own exposure and the nature of the business, and align it with the approved risk policy. So to ensure this framework proper across the entire organization structure, the company also needs to be transparency. Okay, for the exposure to liability for contract claims, Eversendai Corporate Berhad needs to monitor and ensure the KPI set out during the preparation phase. So it will reduce the likelihood of delay in the project, ensure the quality of the service, and demonstrate the company diligent in ensure the appropriate use of public fund. And lastly, business and project risks. So Eversendai corporations able to minimize the impact, such as avoid the risk. Top management of Eversendai need to think the best alternative or strategy to avoid the risk appear. So ERM or enterprise risk management may be the best alternative to mitigate the risk arise in the organization. And other than that, Eversendai also should contain the risk. Sometimes risk cannot be avoided or prevented, but company able to choose to contain, say, risk while putting out the safety nets. That's all from me. Next, I will pass the presentation to the NAJWA.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is NABILAH binti NOOR and my MATRIC number is 264735. Now I will continue with the next risk, which has triggered a concurrent supply and demand shock. So in order to eliminate this risk, Eversendai must avoid this risk in order to achieve their mission, which is one to maintain and enhance consistent performance. Eversendai must have a backup supplier in order to make sure they did not have a problem with supply chain. The risk response for high outstanding order book is mitigate the risk. So Eversendai can follow all the SOP that have been prescribed by the government in order to make sure their company can operate during MCO in order to make sure they did not have any outstanding orders. For operational risk, Eversendai can transfer the risk to the third party in order to reduce their operational cost. For example, to transfer the risk, this company can take a liability insurance where it covers the cost of claims that a company committed a mistake during they deliver their service to others company. For financial risk, Eversendai must avoid this risk where they should not focus on a single task. As mentioned in the case, Eversendai overly focused on energy area where it produced a bad return in 2020. So Eversendai must diversify their income to ensure that they did not run into a financial difficulties. Last but not least is competitive market environment. This type of risk cannot be avoided by all the company in an industry, but this risk can be mitigated by Eversendai. So in order to make sure that Eversendai to mitigate this risk, Eversendai can focus on the customer demand. Eversendai must make sure that their project meets all the requirement needed by the customer in order to make sure that the customer choose their company over their competitors. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Sadly, we have reached to the end. So we have learned that Eversendai Corporation has established and execute a rigorous structure of internal control and risk management to avoid any material losses for the company. Eversendai always have the room to improvise, which is continue to monitor and evaluate the risk practices and any upcoming risk to the company. This is because the degree of risk that they confront may vary throughout the time, and with the new threats arising, the other threat might be less dangerous. So while monitor, they can get ready to face the new risks. That's all from us today. Thank you for listening.